see me?
I can see you, I can hear you.
Lovely. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Vikas. How have you been?
Good, all well.
Very, very nice. Lovely to have you again.
Thanks so much, Rajiv. You've been very busy.
Quite busy. How has things been after the launch of Attain?
Good. Just picking up. So, seeing some traction. So
Uh-huh.
that's keeping me quite busy.
Very, very nice. I understand how the newer things, couple of months would be for you.
Oh,
It
that's
would be
crazy.
crazy. You must be juggling with multiple things on the plate, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, and today, one of the upcoming engagements actually got cancelled,
Uh-huh.
postponed rather. So, for the first time ever, I was pleased that, okay, something, because I have something coming on next week already. And that was another big event. So I thought it was good. It gives me time to focus a bit more on Attain.
Very,
So
very
that's what
nice.
happening.
Superb, superb. Lovely, lovely to have you on the show, Vikas. And first of all, thank you so much for accepting the invite. And
Of course.
I'm deeply honored and humbled to have you. You are the first guest with whom I spoke when I conceptualized this format.
Oh, lovely.
And thank you for readily accepting it. And I completely remember how open were you and excited about the concept and said, I'm in. So that gave me a lot of impetus and momentum to get all other guests. And today I've got around 30 guests and we're just having lovely
Awesome. Wow.
conversations. So thank you for kickstarting it.
Oh, pleasure. Glad.
Right?
You're informal. You want me to also
No,
quickly?
absolutely not.
Okay.
This is my regular attire. I run a lot of
Acha.
sessions and all that, so I'm part of this. Yeah.
So back to your office, I see, is it?
Yeah. I have been coming
Okay.
to office regularly.
Okay.
Regularly. Yeah.
So how far is it from residence? And
It's a 30 minutes drive from my residence, 30-40
not
minutes.
bad by Bangalore standards.
Actually. Yes.
So,
Super. So, Vikas, before we get started, let me quickly introduce you to the audience. So, hi everyone, welcome back to the series. You have been listening to multiple guests talking to me on books and how books have impacted their lives. And we have yet another guest, Vikas Dua, founder of a platform that is going to connect great people who are doing wonderful work with the academia. That's a great connect, which is not at all available on the market. And Attain is the first of its kind, an organization founded by Vikas going to do that. So please go up and look up about the organization. And Vikas is all present on LinkedIn, so you can always connect with him. Vikas is a TED speaker. He's also somebody who's very, very passionate about working in the space of talent management, talent acquisition. He loves to get great talent from the academia into the industry. He calls it as a love affair that started on the campus, right? Because and
correct.
it stayed on, and a lovely person to talk with. He makes you absolutely comfortable when you chat with him. There's no aura of whatever he has done in his life. Very, very grounded, very, very lovely person to be. And I'm so happy to have Vikas on the event. Welcome, Vikas.
Thank you so much, Rajiv. Very kind words indeed. Makes my day. Thank you so much, and
Absolutely.
pleasure to be part of this. I think.
Oh, yes. Honestly, because without any exaggeration, Attain, I think, is a lovely format. It's a lovely concept, in fact.
Great.
Going back to the powerful book of Start With Why, I think your why is very, very clear, and the how and what will eventually fall into place.
I hope so. True.
Yeah, it will. And I was part of the launch even, so thank you for getting me there. It was a great experience. All right.
Awesome.
So let's straight away get into the conversation. So tell me, because how have books been a great companion for you? And when did it start?
Oh, great, Rajiv. And question. It started way back in time and very early in my younger days.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the second child to my parents, and uh, that's been beneficial in a way for as far as books go, at least. I have an elder sister who's a voracious reader, and so there were always books lying around at home, and that's where I think the affinity for books started. Like most kids, it was Enid Blyton, Hardy Boys, and Nancy Drew, and then it obviously grew from there. Interestingly, I grew up in Bombay, and we were at Bandstand. The nearest private library was at Hill Road, which was some kilometers away, and I remember my parents allowing us to use public transport for the first time just to visit that library. So that was also, in a sense, books not only expanded my knowledge, but it also gave me that sense of confidence and capability that one could go without a senior accompanying uh, him to the market, so to speak. And since then, books have always been a companion, and till date somehow. it's the paper book which has always attracted me, interestingly. So
Oh yeah, ask me about it.
I haven't somehow managed to move on to the Kindles of the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just love the feel of paper in my hand.
Sure, sure. Try Kindle just for the experience of it. It's good to toggle around two things. It kind of increases your speed of reading. You may want to try that. Even I had this mental block,
Okay.
but
Okay.
when I tried to Kindle, I realized that there are very many books that you're not aware of, and Kindle kind of gives you a quick, feel of those books. And there's a good reads where you have an ocean of maverick readers like us, and you get to connect with them and create a nice community there. So try it out.
I will do that. I think
Yeah.
I have taken your advice on more than one occasion. I will take this up as well.
Thank you so much. So, do you and your sister still kind of share books and talk about what book you read, what book she read?
I think over time the genres completely diverged. I think she
Uh-huh.
went into very high-end fiction and what I would call the intellectual stuff. I have somehow remained closer to the world of business and management. That's always been something that's attracted me.
Super, super. So now that your sister inspired you and gave you a chance to get connected with books, how did Vikas as a reader contribute in his own journey and development as a leader?
Again, interesting question. And if I think back about it, ever since this got scheduled, I was just thinking about this aspect of my relationship with reading, and it hadn't emerged before, Rajiv. Honestly, it emerged now. That if I really look back at my years of reading, they really can be split up into phases. And much like how we talk about in our seminars as Industrial Revolution 1 and the second Industrial Revolution, third and 4.0 and all that. So during my MBA, I was literally reading magazines, business magazines, economic magazines, political magazines, trying to bridge that gap between theory and the real world. Once I started my career, I gravitated towards biographies. So, I'm sure these are books you've also grown up on, Iacocca, Made in America, and that leak. I still remember. And then, of course, I grew all the way to reading the Starbucks story and the HP way. So very, you can say practical and of stories of people who've done that, been there, and all that.
Correct.
Later, I explored a huge amount of management books, ranging from books like The 1 Minute Manager, Covey's 7 Habits, and typical management books that every budding leader reads.
Right.
And now the latest phase, which has been now, I would say for the last 2.5 years, has been the self-help or the personal development genre, which I've been attracted to.
Right.
So books like Everything's Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. You introduced me to Never Split the Difference.
Right.
And the 5 a.m. Club. So, these are amazing books, which I am now finding very valuable at this stage in my life and career.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. How has this shaped you, Vikas, as a leader?
So I think what I've really tried to do is somewhere subconsciously, I'm sure it has played a role. I've also, in whatever interactions I've had with my team, with the students at various campuses and all that I've been to, I have thrown in nuggets and with the hope eventually of inspiring other people to also pick up some of the books that have inspired me. Unfortunately, I found that the intensity to read or the affinity to read has been gradually diminishing for some reason. I know Kindle sales will possibly not showcase the fact, but with the younger generation, I know there is a little bit of a struggle as far as getting them to read. I'm very encouraged that my elder daughter at least is again turning out to be a voracious reader. And,
good.
The moment the book is home, it's done in 24 hours and I have to order another one.
Oh, nice. That's very, very heartening. As a father, I'm sure you must be, what a relief.
Truly. I think it's one skill someone should pick up, it's, to read.
Absolutely. Super. Fantastic. I think, you know what, based on the three phases that you beautifully said in terms of the reading journey of yours, I kind of see a pattern. I think all of us might have probably gone through this same thing, starting with the Nancy Drews and Famous Twice and Hardy Boys of the world. We moved on to the Iacocca's of the world, and then finally we landed up with the current books that we're talking about. And one of the books that we're going to talk about today. I think it seems to be a pattern. It also tells that all of us have evolved in kind of a pattern in the corporate world, in the environment in which we are working. Though it would be different functions that we have handled, but I think that's a pattern that I'm able to see based on what you're telling me. So that's very, very interesting, right? Awesome. So coming to this book of the day that we're going to reveal in a moment. From all of the books, what made you pick this book as one of the most inspiring ones for you?
Without sounding immodest, I would say I think knowing myself that I'm high on EQ, and this was one of the first books again in the management genre which I happened to pick up way back early in my career. And I like the way Daniel Goleman started by actually talking about the brain before actually coming down to the EQ part of it and the theories and the research. And for many of us, I'm sure, while a lot of books today talk about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and all of that, I think this was one of the first books that actually made it more real and understandable for us. So that's somewhere where I got inspired to pick up this book. There is also a lot of research and guidance within the book that he has also packed in, which can also help any reader to kind of start observing himself or herself much more closely, and then try and make those subtle shifts to improve. So I like that component of the book. I remember that very clearly. And then the fact is that in my career, I've had the fortune of working with people at both sides of the spectrum: high IQ, low EQ, high EQ, low IQ, a good balance of both. So it's been also fascinating to watch a lot of colleagues, a lot of leaders from that lens, and see, that a lot of what Daniel Goleman says is actually fact.
Actually, it makes absolute sense. In fact, when the word was coined, it shook the world of management.
Yeah.
People knew, but nobody thought there can be a word that can be coined of this sign. And emotional intelligence, he beautifully says, is intelligently being emotional.
Right.
It is just about using the cognitive ability to manage our emotions effectively.
True.
Such a lovely phrase that he had come up with. I think as you rightly said, all that you're talking about in terms of the brain related stuff that other authors have written, I think we, both of us, and I'm sure many of the listeners will give it hands down to Daniel Goleman to be the pioneer in doing this.
Exactly.
Lovely book, lovely book. I think it also brought in the element that leadership is all about emotions, is all about managing human beings and feelings and all that stuff, right?
Correct.
Primarily from a Victorian and authoritative kind of leadership space, when we moved to the millennial and the so-called late 90s and 2000s, I think it became all the more important. So it's a lovely book. And thank you for picking up this book of Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. And it's a lovely book. So tell me, Vikas, Daniel Goleman talks about self-awareness as one of the fundamental elements for the existence itself.
Correct.
And he calls self-awareness is nothing but self-focus. What is your take on this? And how has self-focus played out in your own journey?
Sure, Rajiv. So if I have to introspect a bit, and this is something that I have noticed a lot about our culture and the environment we all grow up in. Every child is a superstar. For the parents, for the grandparents, for the family friends, for the masis, the uncles. We can do no wrong. And we all grow up, I would say, maybe a good thing in a way, but the fact is that we all grow up possibly with a very inflated sense of self. Or even if it's not inflated, it's maybe not the correct sense of self, the accurate sense of self. And that tends to be a huge liability as we go forward, because that's not really how you can, like they say, leverage your strengths towards success. So when I look at self-awareness as being one of the main pillars that Daniel talks about, the entire goal for myself has been, through the periods that I have been working and post, is how can I use my strengths and play to them so that I achieve success at the end of the road. Having said that, it's not that my path has not had thorns. There have been fumbles. I have struggled, and these tough times are the ones where really then I tend to go back and revisit some of the learnings from the book, or attempt to figure out what and why those mistakes have happened.
Right.
More often than not, also in the corporate world, I'm sure you've experienced that as well. We've had a very similar path in some ways. The day-to-day running on the treadmill, the corporate pressures, tend to kind of draw our attention away from ourselves and try to navigate all of the different elements that are hitting us from each side. And that's when your self-awareness is lost. That's when you kind of falter in your chosen direction and end up making those mistakes.
Right.
So at such points, sometimes I've embarked on the journey of self-awareness myself. Sometimes I've taken the support of colleagues. At other times, I've even taken on the support of executive coaches who can help you get back that balance that is
Correct.
essential if you really need to move forward in the right way.
Correct. Absolutely. I think you made a lot of sense when you spoke about the Masis and grandparents and all that. I think the generation in which we grew kind of had a joint family.
Correct.
Mosa was Mosa, Chacha was Chacha. They were not uncles.
Yeah.
Like the current world. Har koi uncle auntie.
Exactly.
Right. And a husband, a wife, and 2 children is joint family today.
True.
Right. So I think somewhere we were also in that cocoon of a comfort, right? कि अपना बच्चा कभी गलत नहीं करेगा या करेगी, right? So these elements never mattered or probably required for us. But as we came to the corporate, realized no, emotionally being stable is so fundamentally important, and we're out of the comfort zone, isn't it? So it became all the more important, as you rightly said, which also brings a thought in my head on the next question that I would like to ask you is, being aware is fine, but in a regulated environment, we also have to be far more self-regulated, right? And there is a possibility, and as Darwin says, we are a monkey.
Right.
Tendency to jump across branches is heavy in us, right?
Correct.
With that monkey in the Homo sapien that we are, how do we use self-regulation effectively? Because Daniel calls self-regulation as putting salt to food. It's a lovely metaphor. How did you use this putting salt to the food effectively in regulating yourself, Vikas?
Great. So before I answer that, I recalled suddenly, because you brought about this word self-regulation, a simple insight with one of my previous bosses that shared with me. And what she had shared was that whenever you get an email, don't respond immediately. Let it sit there for a while. And especially if it's an antagonistic one, it's one that's aggressive, just sit back on it, let it sink, spend a few hours, do other stuff, come back to it, and then respond. And I think that's been one of the most effective, simple hacks that has worked wonders for me in my corporate career.
Lovely.
So it can be as simple as that. But having said that, for the benefit of the audience, my understanding is that our emotions are ultimately somewhere influenced by our biological impulses. And you use the word Homo sapiens. I'm sure you've read the brilliant book Sapiens. It again starts really from that aspect of humans, where all of us have really started from the need to survive.
Correct.
So that biological element of us is always active, always watching out for signals which tend to force us to shift our position, and that's unnerving. Now, these impulses are not easily controlled, Rajiv, is the reality. But what we can control is the reaction or the emotion that comes about.
Beautiful.
And that's what really self-regulation is about. It's that salt which Daniel says where can transform the dish, can get it to the right taste that is preferred by the ones that are consuming it.
Beautifully articulated, because I must say that, because self-regulation helps us to have a control on the impulses.
Correct.
Else that monkeyness can make us do anything aside and beside of what we're doing, right?
Correct. And in fact, we've all, I'm sure, just to spend a minute or more on this, gone through experiences where the team has maybe messed up a huge presentation in front of the boss. I've had bosses who've come back and blasted the life out of us and banged things on the desk and, threatened as well. I've had other bosses who've understood, who've come back, sat down with the team after an hour or so, after thinking through the whole process, discussed what went wrong, and addressed any challenges which the team members had, come up with a plan to try and avoid that in the future. By hearing these two sides of the coin, I'm sure anyone listening in would know who is the one or who is the leader who's going to be more admired, more cherished, and who they'll aspire to work closely with. So that's really what self-regulation is all about. Having the ability to control those emotions and managing yourself.
Right. And the beauty is, it's within our control. We can practice it.
Correct.
It's not something that you need to go and get at Harvard MBA or you need to go to Gurukul for 15, 16 years or एक साधु बन जा उसके बाद मैं control कर लूँगा. You can still do
Exactly.
it. And beauty of the book is Daniel not only says you can do it, he gives you tips and tools to practice and do it.
Yep.
Very, very interesting, right? Super. Because you work a lot with the younger crowd, right? Who are in the angle of getting into the corporate space and they want to make their own mark and journey and make an impact. And every generation has got an ability to do 2.5 times better than what the earlier generation can do, which is what Darwin also talks about. But the fact is, the earlier generation always feel कि अगला generation कुछ क्या कर लेगा. Now, somewhere here, the young boys and girls in the current world in which they are, unlike the world in which we were born in the 75, 76, 77s of the circa. Why do you think EQ becomes all the more important? At least I feel so. What's your take?
Again, lovely question, Rajiv. And I think what I will direct the audience to do is to pick up today's Economic Times. Surprisingly, coincidentally, the last page of the Economic Times today, the bottom right corner, there is a small article, short article, which is exactly on this aspect. There's a study which has been quoted and it's been published by the National Academy of Sciences. This body did a study over 14 years, tapping students from the time they were doing their MBA or higher studies to the time they actually had spent a considerable amount of time in the corporate world and achieved positions of power. What they found was interestingly, and it again reiterates the fact that Daniel Goleman had so much foresight, so much of understanding at that time. They found exactly the similar pattern emerging, where the people who've been more likely to achieve more higher positions of power are the ones who've been the more generally more composed, nicer, self-managed individuals.
Right.
The ones who were more aggressive, more cutthroat, haven't done as well in that 14-year period. Which only goes to again prove that time and again studies and examples around us have shown that EQ does matter and plays a huge role.
Absolutely.
Whether we are working with students or with our own children, I think it's important for us to stress that this is a critical aspect of the personality that they should look at developing in the right way.
Right.
What happens, Rajiv, is that in media often we only see the very I would say boisterous or the aggressive side of leaders. And often the media and the communication that we see around us builds that up as the so-called achievers.
Correct.
That one has to be very, very aggressive to send a satellite into space or to build a global empire. And one needs to be cutthroat, one needs to be highly aggressive. And that's not the truth. So that's really the approach I like to follow, the guidance I like to share with students when I interact with them. And studies like this, when they come across, really are hard proof. And that's something that I like to, being a slightly, you could say, person of a scientific bent, to showcase information with facts and data rather than just generic statements. So that really helps.
Correct. In fact, very interestingly, you put this point. I had a chat with Ashish Ambastan. We know him on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
He's a founder of Happy Plus Consulting, and he was the first guest. We were talking about the book Start With Why. That's what he had picked up.
Okay.
The conversation went on beautifully into how the Mughal Empire got itself established historically, and how Akbar was seen as one of the most benevolent kings, starting from the Babur to the Aurangzeb. If you go, Akbar is the only man who stands out as Akbar the Great after Alexander the Great. Nobody else has got this title called the Great.
Sure.
Right? The conversation was so beautiful when Ashish spoke about the fact that Akbar was somebody who knew the why very well, and he's somebody who connected communities and cultures together. Today, as you're talking, I think if you look at emotional intelligence, probably I'll give it to Akbar. The ability to have temples constructed inside his darbar, allowing cultures to go together, creating a new religion, etc. I think it's all about being emotionally a very intelligent leader, isn't it?
Fair point. I would agree with that.
Yeah, as you were saying, I was just thinking it kind of connects the dots so beautifully in my head.
Correct.
Lovely, lovely. Which means historically also it gets proven. And Daniel Goleman was not born that time, but it
Yeah,
gets
of course.
proven, isn't it? Lovely, fantastic, lovely. You're saying as an advice, as a seasoned leader to HR, young leaders, and also other leaders, that it's important to be emotionally stable in the current world, right?
Correct.
Daniel also talks about a word called resilience,
Yeah.
emotional resilience, right? And I was reading an article sometime back which says in the current post-COVID, there are two things which are required for leaders. They say is emotional resilience and agility as the fundamental skills
True.
for survival or for
Mm.
doing good. Why resilience has become so important and prominent in the youngsters today? We were also young. We also grew in an environment. These guys are young. लेकिन ऐसा क्यों लग रहा है कि आज उनको ज्यादा चाहिए? What is it that we see in them lacking or they're not doing because of it? They need to become far more resilient.
So to that, Raji, quite frankly, I won't say that the generation is lacking or the youth is lacking, or even people from the previous generations who still existing in the same ecosystem lacking in any way. I just feel that the environment per se has evolved and transformed much more dramatically than possibly ever in the past. And as we are all aware, there is a huge amount of flux today in the environment.
Right.
There is not only a health pandemic, there is socio-political unrest. There is a widening gap between the rich and the poor. And if you look at the Fortune 100, just in 10 years, the entire organization or the industry categorization on that list has got transformed. And more of that wealth is being concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer. This is creating, in my view, a lot of pressures on the population, on individuals across the globe, and India is, of course, not insulated.
Right.
It's also leading to a space where, because of the advancement, because of environment moving, technology changes, the half-life of skills is becoming shorter. Right. So the kind of skills or the education that we were able to subsist on for 15, 20 years of a career, people are saying that at best may serve you 5 or 6 years in the future going forward.
Correct.
So resilience becomes important. Yeah. So the kind of tools, technologies we are using today in most of our businesses weren't around till at least 5 to 6 years ago. And it may seem extremely simple to use today, an app like Uber or a Zomato. But I remember when we started our career, ordering food for the team used to be picking up the phone and calling a nearby restaurant, or having someone from the team to actually go and pick up that food also.
उसके पहले petty cash जाके check करना पड़ता था कि पैसा है क्या.
Exactly. So, and these are examples which are real in life today, and one can only wonder what is the next stage. So having said that, I think the resilience is therefore required, because how do workers today, how do people today ensure that what they know today is able to contribute value to their organizations 3, 4, 5 years down. Right. And if not, then what is it that I have to do to ensure that I'm still creating value?
Absolutely.
Also, the fact that, sorry.
Yeah, please continue.
Also, the fact that, a lot of job roles, like the one that even I come from, recruitment, and I spent good 15 plus years in that subdomain of HR. While most people perceive HR as being a soft science and being an area of the function or the organization where one can have a slightly easier track, it's the exact opposite, where there is a day-to-day stress of managing recruitment numbers, those targets, and ensuring that the right individuals join the organization's fold. Yeah. So in that entire scenario, unless one is resilient, unless one works on improving resilience, one cannot survive.
I completely agree.
So in a lot of roles, I think for individuals, it's also the inherent need to be able to just survive, that they need to be resilient and grow.
I think very rightly said. In fact, the other day I was having a chat with a similar person who's going to come as a guest. and I've had this, I'm sure you also would have had this, and I would sometime lose my cool momentarily when somebody would come and say, "Yeah, मैं अपने काम से बोर हो गया, मुझे HR में नौकरी दिला दो."
Exactly.
It's almost like anybody can get into HR and do it, and it's the easiest job to do because उनके मुताबिक लगता है HR का काम है कि पहले लेटर दे दो ऑफर का, which is a contract document,
Correct.
उसके बाद एक अप्रेजल करवा दो, फिर एंड में एक रिव्यू लेटर दे दो, तो कुछ इंक्रीमेंट दे दो जो इंसान को हैप्पी नहीं रखता है. That's all HR job is. They just don't get it. It's far more, and I would always say, अच्छा प्लीज कम, आप जैसे लोग चाहिए हमें HR में, we need far more intelligent people like you. आके आप कीजिए, we would want to definitely help the HR fraternity. 6 महीने आप करके देखिए, and then we would love to have you if give you an internal job posting if you can. Really tell you. So
I'm sure not many applied.
It's not that easy, right? And coming to
Correct.
your is, because I always think talent acquis is actually a strategic role. It's the first entry point of a talent into an organization. If that person holding the role goofs it up, look at the implication that you're going to have on the organization. Starting from the signing of the contract, everything is going to go wrong.
Correct.
Besides the loss of money, there are so many other elements that are going to get affected, and sometimes talent acquis is taken अच्छा है तो एक talent दे देता है. It's just not that. It's fundamentally critical. It's the
Correct.
opening door, isn't it?
It's your organization's face. It's in a lot of ways defining your organization's brand, your employer brand. So there's a lot more to it than most people understand. And in fact, just yesterday, again, one of the LinkedIn exchanges, I know both of us are very active there. There was a post by a young student who was talking about a very critical aspect of a recruitment process, which is giving the candidate feedback.
Okay.
And everyone knows, by and large, I think talent acquisition professionals, if there has been one failure point over the years, it has been this inability to give constructive, positive feedback 100% of the time. It may be happening in pockets, it may be happening sporadically, but unfortunately, by and large, we have failed. And I think that is a pain I'll always
carry. As a community, I think we don't do it.
Correct. So that is a fault or a pain that I'll always carry, Rajiv. I think somewhere, if I can solve that aspect for a lot of professionals, I think it will be a job well done.
Actually, yeah. Tell me, we could work on something on doing that. That's a very important space to be. I completely agree with you, right? Lovely. So tell me, guys, you started your career, you became a TED speaker, then today you're an entrepreneur. One fundamental thing which is a prefix to driving this passion is self-confidence. Give me a powerful example for the youngsters of how self-confident were you when you were in the early 30s and the mid 30s as you were moving up. Any instance that could really inspire the listening budding leaders that self-confidence is something that they should not let go of.
Lovely. Again, I'd go back to one of the instances early in my career, Rajiv. This was a job fair which my organization had organized in Guwahati University. And as I was leading the campus program for the organization, I was the one actually who set it all up, and it took a whole amount of planning, month or 2 months to plan it out and execute it. And on the appointed day, we were at Guwahati in the university, grand day. My head of talent acquisition at that point had been flown down to deliver the opening address. And there were about 1,000 people supposed to be in that auditorium that day, including the university officials, the candidates, the parents, and so on. And a couple of hours before that, he got some requirement to head back to Bangalore, an urgent emergency which had come up. And unfortunately, he had to go back. And suddenly, I was supposed to take that address. So there are two things that happened there which really impacted my whole self-confidence on that date and even going forward. The first was that he himself brought me to the side and said, don't worry, Vikas, I have faith in you, you'll pull it off. And the second was that I rewinded memory and I looked deeper inside myself to look at all those other campus events which I had done for the last 2.5 years. They were smaller groups, about 100, 200, maybe 300 at best. But I had been there doing those events which were in some sense a pilot, you could say, for that great big event which was now I was supposed to stand in front of and execute. And I can't tell you how much, Rajiv, that helped shape my whole self-perception, my self-confidence, because
Right.
with those encouraging words from my supervisor, my senior, and added to the fact that I actually done some of that in a little laboratory experiment kind of way,
Mm.
I was able to pull off that event very seamlessly.
Beautiful.
And so if ever I feel underconfident, or feel that I'm not going to be able to pull this off, I just go back and revisit some of my younger days and younger self,
Right.
where it would have been unimaginable at that age to pull off something like that, and I've done it. So why struggle now, or why wonder, or why question
Yeah.
myself now?
I agree. And today you're a far more experienced, a far more mature person. You've seen the ups and downs far more than what you saw during the Guwahati incident, right? And
Correct.
today give you a 10,000 audience, a lakh of audience, you'll pull it off because karke aap aaye ho, isn't it?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I
Self-confidence, I
don't want
think.
to discount the effort part of it, because that is always the key differentiator, because confidence is only built on having done stuff, having put in the effort.
Yeah.
Even the TEDx speech that you spoke about, uh, before going on to that stage, I missed the previous speaker's address because I was out in the back area practicing my speech one last time.
Mhm.
So if you can continue investing in yourself, putting in that effort, the confidence will also build gradually.
Absolutely, absolutely, completely agree. A very powerful learning I had many, many years back. They say that you cannot do anything with the butterflies in your stomach. The only thing that you can do is you can form formations of the butterflies.
Beautiful. I'll
It
remember
was,
that.
it was a beautiful learning for me. It said, I cannot ever get that feeling off my stomach, but if I formalize it and make a formation, it means I'm channelizing my thought and just getting ready for the event. It was a fabulous learning that my master trainer gave me when she was certifying me as one of the global trainers in Dale Carnegie US. It was a great learning for me. I said, wow, I never thought this backstage experience that you're talking about is exactly that, right? You were just standing there and forming that formation of the butterflies in your stomach,
True. Now that you mention it, yeah, it
isn't
is.
it? And that's all about. I think the youngsters listening to you should just do that. Not worry about the butterflies, but just go there with full confidence and deliver it, isn't it?
Correct.
How lovely, how lovely. Super, super. Lovely chatting here.
Thanks. Same.
Uh, Emotional intelligence that you're talking about in the last 30 minutes, it seems that it can be developed and it can be improved and acquired. Is it? Or does it need to have some innate thing in it?
So again, Daniel clearly says it can be, and honestly, a person of his stature says, "I'm sure it can be." Having also experienced personally, for that matter, that yes, there are elements to your emotional intelligence that you can continue to develop
Mm,
and expand upon.
mm,
So it's just like they say, leadership is not hard coded, or management skills are not hard coded.
mm,
Uh, m- Most surely, emotional intelligence can be also developed, and you can grow from there.
right.
What you really need to understand, Rajiv, is the as a starting point is the self-awareness piece that Daniel talks about,
Mm,
which is what am I today, and the
mm,
closer and the more accurate understanding of that self that you can develop is going to always set you up for success in that
mm,
journey.
mm.
What I guide anyone that I interact with is to take charge or take ownership of that change, because it has
Right.
to be a conscious move,
Correct.
and it requires a lot of practice, a lot of working on it. It's not easy. Whether it's self-awareness, whether it's keeping yourself positive,
Mm,
whether it's being empathetic towards self.
mm,
You know, often what happens in our environments is that whether it's our friend circle, whether it's the business space,
mm,
we tend to start having a loose conversation, which could be negative, which could be
mm.
not value additive.
Right.
So if it is not value additive, it's in some ways a wastage of time. It's not going to take anyone forward.
Mm,
And even Daniel talks about this whole piece about uh, emotions being contagious.
mm.
So it's always better in that sense that why not hang around with more people who are like-minded, who are positive,
Actually.
who are looking at the solution side,
Mm.
to help develop your emotional intelligence.
Yeah,
Ultimately, that's what it's all about, right?
absolutely.
How you can manage the emotions of yourself and others for the benefit of all.
Absolutely. And when you surround yourself with such people, it just creates a multiplier effect, right? and you
Correct.
quickly become a far more stable person. Let's say you're going to take 8 years, you may probably become in 6 years or 7 years a far more stable person. Right?
Correct. I mean,
Lovely,
the
lovely.
two social media platforms that I think many professionals spend time on, Twitter and LinkedIn. Somehow I tend to find myself gravitating more towards LinkedIn because there's more positivity and more learning and engagement happening there,
Yeah.
versus a Twitter where, yeah, there is a lot of learning and engagement, but often a lot of negative engagement.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, budding leaders watching and listening to Vikas, figure out a way to spend more time on LinkedIn, lesser time on your Twitter, Instagram, other stuff. That element of fun is okay, but what's more important is we're talking about leadership, we're talking about
Sure.
emotional intelligence, we're talking about your own growth. Spend more time. I would say invest more time on LinkedIn. Right? Thank you so much, Vikas. That's a very, very powerful one. So let me ask you this question, which when I thought of to ask you, I had a smile in my face, but I thought I should definitely not miss asking this question, right? Tell me
I'm
one
nervous.
aspect. Tell me one aspect that you believe that people have seen in you that makes them say Vikas is an emotionally intelligent person.
Ah, so people who worked with me, who've been in my team, I think I can say it without any hesitation, is that they probably would say that they haven't seen me lose my cool. So I have not been one of those bosses banging things on the table for sure, or throwing things around. And for those who not work with me, on for maybe those who I've engaged with on LinkedIn or other such forums, possibly I think they would, taking cue from my HR in my heart hashtag that I use,
Mm,
I think they would say that I try to point people in the direction of their own self improvement
lovely.
or development, even while as I'm doing my own. I mean, it's not that I've already made it or reached some specific point or
Mm,
high peak, but I'm happy to have people along in this journey, and all of us kind of support each other and
right. And
find
you
our own.
beautifully call it the version 2 of the person.
Yes. Correct.
Isn't
Correct.
it?
Correct.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I think you are a very calm and composed person. That's what you come across as in the chats that I've had with you, and even now today's call. So
Thank
how
you.
smoothly, calmly you're answering the questions, the smile on your face. It just talks about the fact that मतलब आसपास कुछ धमाका भी हो गया, you'd be like, अच्छा हो गया ना, चलो क्या करना सोचते हैं. Let's not get petrified by it, isn't it? I think it's a great quality, for leaders, because when something is not happening right, when everybody is kind of figuring out quickly कि क्या करें, so much of hustle bustle happening. This one man standing there, one lady standing there and creating, don't worry, this is sortable. We will solve it. And with a lot of pause and composure gives inputs. I think everybody
Correct.
would look at that person, isn't it? And that is exactly what emotional intelligence is all about, isn't
Yeah. Like they say, success has many fathers, failure has none.
it?
So one has to be careful and composed, and ensure that there's
Yeah,
collaboration and sharing of credit where it's due.
absolutely.
These are the basics, Rajiv. You know them better than I do, and I think if
Absolutely.
the younger
These
generation
are
can just pick up
fundamentals.
some of this, I think it will help them.
Absolutely. So my last but one question as we close this conversation. It's been so beautiful. I just don't want to close it, but I'm forced to close it for constraint of time. Uh, two, just two powerful, razor sharp advice to the youngsters.
The first would clearly be to look at managing self. Start from there, and the second would be to look at the word discipline and incorporate that into your being end to end.
Right, right. Very powerful, friends. Pick up these two. This can be the twig or can be that piece of wood that can take you through all turbulences that people like Vikas and others have gone through in their lives, and they've seen it there, they've been there, they have done it. So it's a pearl of advice for all of you guys. Pick it up. I think that will help you to move faster in your leadership journey, give you that extra impetus, right? As coming from Vikas himself. So please go ahead and do that. Thank you, Vikas, for that. My last question, you're a maverick reader, you love reading books. I'm somebody who love reading books. We connected because of this word called
Correct.
BOOK, and we spoke about that. We got booked because of the word book, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Uh, what's your thought on this concept, leaders and libraries? And what is your take on the work that Leadership Elements is doing in the corporate world through books? And what we are doing is to help individuals find their leaders in themselves through books.
Great, Rajiv. So honestly, and I'm not saying this just because one has managed to connect to you, build a rapport with you, and one sees matching of wavelengths on various aspects. But the fact is that if I have to look at the last 6 months on LinkedIn and name just one single differentiated idea that one came across, I think it would be this leaders and libraries concept. I'm saying it without any, embellishment. It's clearly something that is unique, stands out, is differentiated, and more than that, it's something that I think should be propagated, something that should gain momentum, because I am a product of a lot of the books that I've read, and I know for a fact that the amount of knowledge that is there in a lot of these books that we've read, people have spent years researching, thinking through, documenting, and literally here in India, at least, we are able to get that value and that wisdom in 400, 500 rupees. It would be foolish, for lack of a better word, for anyone to not go down that journey of reading.
Lovely.
So, this initiative, Leaders and Libraries, hats off to you for coming up with it. I'm thoroughly impressed, honestly.
Thank you. I think that's the very purpose. Thank you so much. That's very, very motivating and gives me a lot of confidence. Because my passion for reading books became a business model, and this event is an offshoot of that. And lovely to have people like you. I think the idea is, if as an organization we work with multiple companies in building leadership capabilities, if I could help one more leader to go and pick up that one more book and read one more page of that left out book, I think my job is done.
Correct.
So, that's what all of us are here for. So lovely talking to you, Vikas. Thank you so much for this time. Pleasure with you. Thanks for sharing your inputs. Thanks for inspiring the budding leaders. I look forward to meet you soon as things open up.
Definitely, Rajiv. And I think I must say this, it's an honor to be in this list of other accomplished leaders that you've managed to pull together in the series. Honor, really.
Thank you so much. All the best to you and all the best to attain.
Thanks so much.
Right. Look forward to do some work together and help those boys and girls from the college to have a far better inroads into the corporate space. And we'll discuss this separately sometime.
It'll be my pleasure.
You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.